The doll arrived on a bright spring morning in May of 1970, stuffed inside a brown paper-wrapped box from a second-hand hobby store on Chapel Street in New Haven, Connecticut. It was a birthday gift, lovingly chosen by a mother for her daughter, Donna Bradshaw, a 28-year-old nursing student, sharing a modest two-bedroom apartment with her friend and classmate, Angie Marks. When Donna peeled the box open, the first thing she saw was the yarn. Red and thick, it fell in loops around a soft cotton face, stitched with a permanent smile and two charcoal button eyes that never blinked. The doll was Raggedy Ann, or at least a version of her, well worn but intact. Donna grinned. A little childish, maybe, but cute, right? Angie chuckled nervously. It's nostalgic. Donna placed the doll on her bed, propping it up against the pillow. It slumped sideways a bit, like it didn't want to stay put. The first few days, nothing happened. By the end of the first week, Angie noticed something odd. Every time she entered Donna's room, the doll was in a slightly different position. Once it was lying on its stomach. Another time it was facing the wall. Donna shrugged it off. "I must have moved her," she said, "probably when I made the bed." But then it started appearing outside the bedroom, once on the couch slouched like a tired guest, once sitting at the dining table, napkin across its lap. Once, most disturbing of all, it was standing upright by the front door, its stitched smile tilting toward the hallway as if listening. Donna assumed Angie was playing pranks. Angie assumed Donna was. Neither confessed. "I don't like that thing," Angie said one night. "It creeps me out." "It's just a doll," Donna replied, but even she didn't sound convinced anymore. The notes came next. They were small slips of paper, yellowed and torn, at the edges, scrawled in pencil, found tucked under cushions or on the coffee table. The handwriting was shaky, childlike. "Help us. Help Lou." They didn't own parchment paper. They didn't keep pencils lying around. That night, Donna dreamed of a little girl with hollow black eyes standing at the foot of her bed, hair hanging in wet ropes. The girl didn't speak. She just lifted her hand and pointed to the doll sitting in the corner. Donna woke in a sweat and found the doll had been moved again, now propped on her desk, head turned slightly as if watching. Lou Castorini was Angie's friend, sometimes more than a friend, and he was a skeptic in every sense of the word. Former Navy, broad-shouldered, big laugh, bigger mouth. When Angie told him about the doll, he rolled his eyes. "Raggedy Ann, you two really need to get out more." But even Lou didn't laugh when he stepped into Donna's room one afternoon and saw the doll sitting cross-legged on the floor with a piece of paper in its lap. It read, "You shouldn't be here." He held up the note, eyes narrowed. "Okay, seriously, which one of you is doing this?" Neither answered. That night, Lou had a dream, at least he thought it was a dream, where he woke to find himself frozen, unable to move. The doll was crawling up his legs, her soft hands pinning him to the bed. Her smile widened unnaturally. Her button eyes seemed to pulse. He woke up screaming. The next day, Donna found 3 drops of blood on the doll's chest. They weren't hers. They weren't Angie's. She called her mother. Her mother called a medium. They didn't believe in seances. They laughed at Ouija boards. But they were desperate. That Saturday, a pale woman named Cecilia came to the apartment with a crucifix necklace and a heavy black Bible. She sat the girls down, lit a candle, and held the doll in her lap like a newborn. She closed her eyes. "There's a child," she whispered. "Her name is Annabelle Higgins. She died in this building, long before it was an apartment. She was 7, hit by a car outside. She doesn't want to hurt you, she wants to stay. Donna's eyes brimmed with tears. She can stay, she whispered. She's just lonely. Angie looked like she was going to vomit. Lou said nothing, but he never came back to the apartment at night again. A week later, Lou stopped by to check on the girls. Donna was pale. Angie hadn't slept. The apartment was silent, the doll in its usual spot on the bed. Lou sat down on the couch and felt a chill crawl across his spine. "I need a drink," he muttered. In the kitchen, he heard something fall behind him. He turned, and the doll was on the floor, face down, arms outstretched, like it had jumped. He picked it up and hurled it into Donna's room. "Enough already!" That night, as he lay in bed at his own apartment, he felt a sharp stabbing pain across his chest. When he ripped off his shirt, he saw 7 bloody claw marks, 3 vertical, 4 horizontal across his ribs. They burned like acid. But by morning, they were already scabbing over. Donna called a Catholic priest, Father Michael, a young man just out of seminary. He arrived, saw the doll, said a short prayer, sprinkled holy water, and said, "She'll be fine." That night, the crucifix in the apartment snapped in half. The water in the sink turned black. Donna screamed and locked herself in her room with the lights on. Angie finally said what they were all thinking. "Whatever's inside that doll, it's not a little girl." Father Michael contacted someone he hoped he'd never need. Ed and Lorraine Warren. They arrived the following morning. Ed, stoic, grizzled, carried a black briefcase. Lorraine, delicate, eyes too wise for her years, wore a silver cross around her neck that she never touched. The moment Lorraine entered the apartment, her face tightened. "It's not human," she said. "It's not a spirit. It's a demon." Donna shook her head. "But Annabelle..." "Demons lie," Ed said. "They mimic the innocent to invite sympathy. They want permission to enter. You gave it." "What does it want?" Angie asked. Ed looked toward the bedroom where the doll now sat upright on the bed, despite no one touching it. "It wants a soul." Lou sat in the doctor's office, shirt pulled halfway up his torso, as Dr. Halverson stared silently at the jagged wounds across his chest. "They were deeper yesterday," Lou muttered. "They were bleeding. A lot." The doctor looked unconvinced. "They look like old scratches. Cat scratches, maybe. 3 days old. Not fresh." Lou didn't own a cat. Didn't even like cats. But what haunted him wasn't the fading wounds. It was the smell from that night, when he'd felt the scratches open across his skin. The room had filled with a sickly, sulphurous stench. Something between spoiled meat and burnt rubber. He hadn't told the doctor that. He hadn't told anyone about the whispering in his ears that came just before the attack. But Lou knew. He knew that thing in Donna's apartment wasn't done with him. Donna had stopped going to classes. She no longer smiled when Angie made jokes. Her face was pale and oily, her once pristine nurse's uniform always wrinkled. She slept with the door locked, curtains drawn. And the doll, Annabelle, never left her bed now. Donna had started talking to it in hushed tones like it was alive. "She's scared," she told Angie one morning. "She says Lou is angry." "Annabelle said that?" "She didn't use words, but I could feel it. She's trying to protect me." Angie backed away from her. "Donna, please, this thing is evil." Donna smiled for the first time in days. "She's not evil. She just needs someone to listen." That Friday, Lou decided to confront the thing himself. Ed and Lorraine had taken the doll, yes, but something lingered in that apartment. The air was still heavy. The walls felt too close. He spent the night on Donna's couch, cross around his neck, a bottle of whiskey on the floor by his feet. At 3:33 a.m., Lou's eyes shot open. He wasn't on the couch anymore. He was standing. He looked around, confused. Everything had turned a deep red hue. Walls, furniture, even the light seeping from the hallway. Then he heard it. The sound of fabric dragging across wood, like something soft shuffling across the floorboards. "Donna," he called, voice dry. The sound stopped behind him. He turned and saw Annabelle sitting upright on the coffee table. But she was different now, taller, her limbs elongated, her mouth stretched wide open into an unnatural grin that split her cloth face. Her yarn hair moved on its own. He stepped back, tripped, fell against the couch. Then, blackness. Angie found him in the morning on the floor, trembling, soaked in sweat. "Lou?" she whispered. He looked up with eyes that didn't seem like his own. "It's in her now," he rasped. "What is?" "The thing. It moved into Donna." She stopped being Donna entirely the next day. She sat silently in the living room for hours at a time, hands folded, staring at the wall. When she did speak, it wasn't her voice. It was a low, measured cadence that chilled Angie to the bone. One night, Angie crept into Donna's room while she slept. She needed to know, needed to see the doll. But Annabelle wasn't there, and Donna wasn't asleep. She was sitting bolt upright, staring at Angie with jet black eyes, not dark brown, not shadowed, black, reflective. "You shouldn't be here," Donna said in a voice so low it rattled the window pane. Angie ran from the room and didn't return until morning. Father Michael came back, this time pale and shaking. "I've spoken to Bishop Kelly. He's authorized a blessing, but not an exorcism. Not yet." He brought a silver crucifix and a satchel of blessed salt. Donna sat silently on the floor during the blessing, her head tilted. When he finished the prayer, she smiled and said, "You're going to die in 6 months." Father Michael blinked. "What did you say?" She looked confused. "I didn't say anything." He left without finishing the salt ritual. 4 months later, Father Michael died in a car accident on Route 95. His brakes failed. Lorraine returned 2 days after the failed blessing, this time alone. Ed was in New Hampshire on a case involving a haunted farmhouse. She held Angie's hand. "You need to understand something." Angie nodded. "That doll isn't possessed. It never was. Objects can't be possessed. But demons can attach themselves to places and to people. The doll was a tool, a trick, a marionette," Angie whispered. "So what do we do?" "An exorcism," Lorraine said. "A real one. And it won't be easy." On a cold November night, a senior priest, Father Callahan, arrived with Ed and Lorraine to perform a full Roman Rite exorcism. The apartment was cleared, candles lit, crucifixes hung from every wall. Donna was tied to a chair in the middle of the living room, not by force, but because she asked to be. "I don't want it to hurt anyone else," she said, smiling sweetly. As Father Callahan began the ritual, the air thickened. The lights flickered. The doll, seated across the room on a shelf, fell to the floor. Then Donna screamed. Her body jerked violently. Her skin turned blotchy, her veins bulging. Blood ran from her nose and mouth. Ed held her head back as Lorraine sobbed. "Exorcizo te, immundissime spiritus," the priest chanted. Then the fire alarm shrieked, even though nothing was burning. The walls trembled. Donna's eyes rolled back into her head, and her voice became deep and inhuman. "You can't take what's mine." Angie fainted. Lorraine dropped to her knees. Father Callahan thrust the cross against Donna's forehead. "In the name of Christ, I cast you out." Donna let out a shriek so loud it cracked the living room window. A wind howled through the apartment as if every door and window had been flung open. And then, Silence. Donna collapsed. They kept the doll locked in a blessed box lined with pages from scripture, covered with a cross and sprinkled with holy water. Donna recovered slowly. She moved out of the apartment, quit nursing school, moved back in with her mother. 3 months later, a young man in his 20s visited the museum with his girlfriend. He laughed at the doll, pounded on the glass and said, "If this thing's real, come get me." On the ride home, he lost control of his motorcycle, crashed into a tree, and died instantly. His girlfriend survived. She said the last thing he said before they hit the tree was, "Did you hear that laugh?" Ed Warren stood alone in his garage, the early December cold, curling through the gaps in the walls. Before him sat a wooden case, hand-built, reinforced with silver-plated corners, and inscribed with prayers in Latin across its base. Inside was the doll, Annabelle. She was motionless, slumped, arms loose at her sides. Her red yarn hair fell forward as if hiding her face. Ed didn't touch the doll. He never touched the doll. Instead, he knelt beside the case and whispered a prayer, then tightened the final bolt and locked the latch. It was time to bring her home. The Warrens had traveled with cursed objects before, music boxes, pagan idols, possessed paintings. But nothing ever felt like this. From the moment Ed placed the locked case in the back seat of his car, the atmosphere thickened like syrup. The dashboard crucifix vibrated softly. Lorraine rubbed her temples and whispered, "It's angry." They were less than 5 miles from the apartment when the first event occurred. The car jerked to the right, violently. Ed swerved, nearly hitting a guardrail. The steering wheel fought against his grip, as if something else had taken control. "Brake!" Lorraine screamed. The brakes didn't respond. He pulled the emergency brake and skidded to a stop. A metallic screech echoed through the trees. Smoke hissed from under the hood. When Ed opened it, everything looked fine, except the engine compartment smelled like rotten eggs and burnt copper. 20 minutes later, they were back on the road. Lorraine sat stiffly, clutching her rosary. The doll's case sat in the back, unmoved. Then Lorraine gasped, "Do you see him?" Ed glanced to the side of the road. A man stood there, dressed in black, gaunt. He didn't move as the car passed, didn't blink. They kept driving. But 5 minutes later, he was there again. Same spot, same posture, same unblinking eyes. Again. A third time. Then a fourth. Ed didn't speak. He just tightened his grip on the wheel. At the 5th sighting, Lorraine whispered, "That's not a man." Lorraine dozed briefly, lulled by exhaustion and nerves. But when her eyes closed, she was pulled instantly into a vision. A drenched hallway, flickering lights, and Annabelle sitting in the middle of the floor, her arms outstretched. Then she saw a shadow behind the doll, horned, tall, black as pitch, its fingers like charred bone. The shadow reached for her. She woke screaming. The car veered into the oncoming lane. Ed pulled it back, heart thundering. "What did you see?" She shook her head. "We're not alone in this car." 20 miles from Monroe, the car's transmission died. Dead stop. The sky was turning gray. Trees loomed like witnesses. They were stranded. Ed got out to call a tow from a nearby diner. Lorraine stayed in the car with the doll. That's when the glass cracked. The reinforced viewing panel, built to withstand blunt force, fractured from the inside. Lorraine stared, wide-eyed, as a thin, jagged web spread across the glass. Then came the sound, soft, like humming. A girl's voice just under her breath. "Let me out." Lorraine began to pray, but her throat tightened. Her lips wouldn't move. Her rosary burned against her palm. The diner had no phone. Ed returned to find Lorraine pale, eyes glazed. The case was still sealed, but the cross inside had turned upside down. A passing mechanic towed them the rest of the way. They said nothing for the final miles, just silence, and the faint sound of something tapping inside the box. The Warren home was not like other homes. It smelled of sage, candle wax, and old wood. The basement had been converted into their occult museum, a collection of cursed, haunted, and unholy objects, locked behind glass and blessed weekly. They placed Annabelle's case in the farthest corner, behind double-paned glass, next to a sign hand-painted by Lorraine. Warning, positively do not open. Beneath the doll's feet, they placed a copy of The Rite of Exorcism and a vial of holy water. Ed locked it with 3 separate keys. Lorraine didn't sleep that night. She didn't sleep for 3 nights after, because the doll had shifted positions every morning. A year later, a group of college students visited the museum. One of them, a cocky biker with a smirk too big for his own good, laughed at the doll. "Really, this thing?" he said, tapping on the glass. Ed raised a hand. "Do not touch it." But the young man didn't listen. He knocked. Hard, then leaned close and whispered, "Come get me, raggedy bitch." His girlfriend begged him to stop. They left on his motorcycle. 3 miles from the museum, he swerved off the road, slammed into a tree, and died instantly. His girlfriend survived with minor injuries. She told police that something grabbed the handlebars and jerked them sideways. Decades passed. Priests came and went. The museum changed hands. But Annabelle remained. Sometimes she seemed to move. Sometimes the glass fogged from the inside. One time, a priest who mocked her died of a brain aneurysm 2 weeks later. None of this was ever proven, but all of it was reported. In 2020, a rumor spread online that Annabelle had escaped. It wasn't true. She was still there, still behind glass, still smiling, waiting. Thank you for joining us this evening. And remember, evil doesn't always come with fangs or claws. Sometimes it wears a smile stitched in cotton and waits patiently to be invited in. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss a moment from late-night horror stories and true crime. Until next time, keep your doors locked, your lights low, and whatever you do, don't open the case.